Everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. It feels good to be presenting for once to share some good news, and I think it's fitting that we're doing it on such a beautiful day. It's a gorgeous day outside. I did get a chance to run out there at dismissal. Kids were squinting because they're not used to having that much sun in their face. So we'll get this started.
Do this like this.
I'm sorry. And I'll
Ray, you have to unmute yourself. I'm not sure why it muted.
Oh, okay. How about now? All right, and everybody can see the screen? Again, so we're here to talk about reopening for sixth grade. And when I say reopening, I mean having our sixth graders come back to the building, not as two groups, but as one. So for anything that we do in the district, we follow the three themes of safety, mental health, and future ready learning. And of course, these themes were at the forefront of our planning. So as we worked, we always keep these three themes in mind. So why now? Why are we bringing back all of the hybrid students, all the hybrid sixth grade students now? We're gonna bring them back for 4 days. We're gonna take a look at how things work and try to fix them over the break. So we're gonna start with kind of a test week next week to see how things go. That'll be 4 days, obviously, and then when we come back from break, if there's anything that we need to tweak, that's when we'll put them in place. Sixth grade students have not been in school since last March. So our sixth grade students have missed all of the things that sixth graders normally experience when they come to the middle school. So I know I don't have to tell you how difficult it was to begin the year without having the kids come in and tour the building, at least not we always have, not be able to try out their lockers or use their lockers, not have the ice cream social, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just was not a normal beginning, obviously, for our sixth grade students. So they've been out since last March, and we're anxious to get them all back with us again. And our goal has always been to get everyone back 100%.
So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We do have a good group online. You know, another question that had come in, because we had sent out a link to questions, was why now and why not September? Starting the school year, when we look back at the data and things that we started with, it was an unknown. And starting the school year was very hard for everyone because there was a nervousness. There was a worry of coming back at all. And now here we are in March, and the middle school has never closed. And so, you know, that is a lot to be said for that. So on my end, why now? Now, because if we wait till March, next school year will feel the same way as this year did. We'll have that apprehension. We'll have that fear of the unknown. We won't have had the time to pivot back and forth if we need to for that. And so this March through June, our goal is not just sixth grade. Our goal is to get 100% of the students back. We need them with us. We need them to be able to stay after school if they need to. We need to increase our passing rate for all of our students. And we just need them to see their peers and their teachers regularly. That will improve all things going on and really prepare us for next year.
So really, what changes can you expect, and what changes can your sixth grader expect? All of this is being put into place because of the changes to the 6 foot, 3 foot rule. So all students now will be required to maintain a minimum of 3 feet versus 6 feet while they're in school. Oliver Winch has to ensure that the distance is 6 feet. Now, when we're talking about activities like singing or sports when kids are breathing heavily and so on. So essentially what's happened is the acceptable distance, minimal distance, has been cut in half. And that's now made it safe for us to bring the kids back in. And that's probably the biggest change that people will notice. We'll no longer have two groups of sixth grade students, and that's something that very much excites all of us. Sixth grade students are going to come back again. We still have virtual school students who will remain in that model. So this is just the hybrid kids. And as Mrs. Orr pointed out, our goal is to get 100%, but we know too that there are still some families that still aren't ready for that piece. And the fact that, you know, if we did bring them back, we're not even sure that we would have space at this point to be able to do that. Students' desks will be changed. The distance will be 3 feet instead of 6 feet. Students will attend in-school learning during 4 and then 5 days per week. Again, as Ms. Orr pointed out, you know, we although we're not sure about the calendar schedule yet for the future, we know that we need a test time, and that's what's coming up with those 4 days. Students will have more opportunities to stay after school. Obviously, we had to keep our groups, our hybrid groups, separate, which meant that each group only had 1 day that they could stay after for help. They now have at least 2. Transportation, though, remains the same. There are only 2 days that we can provide transportation for after-school activities like after-school help. But if students have transportation, we'll probably be able to allow them to stay after school more often. Mask breaks, because the kids are closer. The change in mask breaks is they just won't have them the same way that they did before. Before, we're able to have mask breaks often in class or as often as needed, as long as the students were seated 6 feet apart from each other and properly supervised. Now that we're within 3, now we're at 3 feet, we can't do that. So the kids will have their masks off only at lunch and if they're outside and spaced and supervised again. And then there's lunch, which I've listed here as a change, but it's really not a change because we're keeping the kids distanced in both the LGI and the cafeteria where they eat their lunch right now. But what we have done to alleviate some of the congestion is arrange to have some kids eat with their teachers in the classroom. So all the same rules will apply when the kids are in a classroom as if they are in the LGI or in the cafeteria. They'll still have to be seated. If they're going to take their masks off and eat, they still have to be spaced out. And when they're done eating, they have to put their masks directly back on. So those are some of the big changes.
There was a question about lunch earlier from our parents. And one of the questions was, will students be able to eat lunch with students from other hybrid groups? With this change, we will no longer be thinking in terms of hybrid. You're either in school or you're completely virtual. And so therefore, as we set lunches up and things, we'll be setting them up by team or by each class in the team, and there'll be more to come in that. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that that question was answered during the lunch period.
Thank you. And Ms. Orr, did you want to talk about transportation and testing?
Thank you. So, you know, what will change? We're hoping transportation changes only slightly. We are still trying to get accurate information each day. The numbers change on each bus, but they are looking at sixth grade carefully to determine where that can be. If you are someone whose child rides the bus and you're nervous about this, we you may want to have your child wear a double mask, or they may want to wear a mask shield. Testing. Tim, do you want to talk about testing a minute?
Sure. So we're going to be testing 10% of students each week with the rapid test. So as you can see, we have up there the CDC recommendation to ensure that our students are safe. We have had a lot of experience testing students the second half of this year, including the 20% testing that we had done when the levels were changing within the state, and the State Department of Health came out with guidelines around testing in order to keep students in school. We started that proactively before it was actually in place. We worked with a local health agency that actually came in and performed those rapid tests for us. We've also been testing our athletes each week that have been participating in our varsity sports. And so that will be continuing. As far as I understand it, that will be on a voluntary basis.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, well, those are the big things that will change. So what will remain the same? I think many of you will be relieved to read that first line. Originally, we thought in order to bring everybody back and keep spacing where it needed to be, that we would need to create another section on each sixth grade team. Thankfully, we didn't need to do that. So you don't have to worry about your kids being on a different team. You didn't have to worry about that before anyway, but their schedules will not be changing. We didn't need to do that. So they will remain in the same groups. They will have the same teachers. They will just see their teachers more often, and they'll be mixed with the other group of students. Masks and PPE, I list that there, and there's only one bullet for that, but everything related to that is really going to remain the same. The expectations remain for the proper wearing of masks so that we make sure that we're not spreading the virus in the building. And that's true for the cleaning and hygiene as well. Again, I could have put many different bullets here on all the things that will be remaining, but as before, we're going to be reminding kids to wash their hands constantly. We're going to remind them to use the hand sanitizer as they're entering and leaving rooms, and the building itself will continue to be cleaned and disinfected as it has, with someone walking throughout the building throughout the day, wiping down the high touch areas.
I think this part, when we talk about what will remain the same, it remains the same, and we're able to do this because our students are really good at it. They've been doing it. It's been very natural to them. They do not fight all the changes in this. They know what they need to do to stay in school. And so, when we look at surveys, or we looked at what we thought again in August to September, we were nervous about this. I think come to find out, students are much better than even adults are. And so this has become their norm, and they know how to do this in school. We hope it doesn't continue to be their norm after this year, but we just don't know right now.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, because that has really been our success. And every time I've talked with parents and families about that, I was always sure to point that out, that it's because the kids are so good at it and the teachers are so good at doing it as well. That's what's kept us in school. Our arrival and dismissal, that will also remain the same. We think we put practices into place for those two important times of the day that have worked for us, and they will continue to work even with the increased number of students. But our goal is always to reduce the congestion either at the doors or in the hallways, and that's why lockers will continue to be restricted. We will not be using lockers except for those who have already been assigned lockers. We won't assign any more lockers, nor will they be used, because obviously we don't want more students standing in the hallway together. Backpacks, well, because we're not using the lockers, we still need the backpacks. One of the big things I noticed with the backpacks is kids carrying around what I call their military packs. And these things, they appear to be about 150 pounds. And when I ask students why they have so many things in their bag, it's because they're afraid they're going to forget something, or, everybody else felt it was something that they needed to be carried. So I'm asking our staff as well as families to really keep an eye on what our kids are carrying in those bags, so they're not carrying around those big, heavy 150 pound bags with them all over the place. Number one, it's not good for them. It's not safe for them. And number two, it's going to take up more space in the classroom, because remember, they're going to have to bring those bags with them into the classroom so that they have the items that they need. And there's going to be less space in the classroom because we are increasing the number of students. So we really have to be mindful about what kids are carrying in those bags. One thing they will need to carry in the bag is a water bottle. Those are still recommended. We're asking you for nothing glass, obviously, because we don't want it to break. Please make sure that your child has a water bottle that doesn't leak when it's laying on its side, because we don't want things getting messy. And of course, the reason we do that is because kids cannot use the water fountains, and we've replaced many of those with those no-touch bottle fillers. And then, of course, there are many other things that will stay the same, but one of the biggest things is our staff members will continue to care for your children as they always have. And I can't tell you how excited we are and looking forward to having the kids together, and then next year welcoming our virtual student families back as well. So I wish I could tell you how excited the staff are, the teachers are. Of course, they're always nervous about making sure that they're doing the right thing, but the excitement you can feel in the building as we get closer to Monday. Zora?
So I get the what if slides. And I know really that's that's on people's minds. And that tended to be the theme of a lot of the questions besides the schedule and people nervousness about their child's schedule changing. And I really think that what we're doing now for that isn't there. First and foremost, we live in the what ifs. We have plans in place before we change anything on all of these scenarios because we've had to all the way through this. If we didn't run these scenarios first and we didn't look at what would happen, we wouldn't be doing our job and assuring you that we truly believe this is the next best move for our students. I meet with the Department of Health every Friday with other superintendents in Saratoga County. And at our last meeting, we had a long talk about physical safety and mental health safety and where is the tipping point of 6 feet to 3 feet and how do we know we're there. You know, and I think for the most part, when you look at our middle schoolers, while they're here, you know, things are good. But we see the disengagement increase. We see their grades drop off. We see attendance drop off. So I say to all of you on the line, we do not take these decisions lightly. That's why it's March and we're talking about it and not January. We know these things. So in no particular order, we talk a lot about what if the numbers increase, okay? And it's always the numbers. First of all, county numbers vary drastically different than our school numbers, okay? The county numbers are at their lowest right now than they've been in a while. We track these numbers every single day. We know exactly where the county is, but we also track our school numbers. In the last 2 weeks, we have had one positive case that's affected the school. And so that piece is there and we know of. And so we look at that. We are very good now with contact tracing and asking the right questions. We have systems set up for this. And you know, we get to the solution quickly. We have a very good relationship with the Saratoga Department of Health, who's designated someone for us, so we can work with them side by side through any cases that there are. At the same time, we look at the county numbers, we look at the school numbers. And that's been one of the biggest changes, not only in our school or our county, but across the state. If you remember a little while ago, the governor had put in regions where you were in the red zone or in the orange zone or in the yellow zone. And we fully expected that at some point in where our numbers were the highest, we'd wind up in one of those zones. And that's why we started the conversations of testing, et cetera. And what the schools found that were in those zones was that their numbers were significantly lower than the county numbers. So when we talk about, and I get questions of, well, what if the numbers change, what will happen? We will look at the numbers just like we have every single day. And as always in our plan, if our school numbers are in a place where we need to pivot a grade or a team or the whole school, we will do that. We have done in the past throughout our district, certain grade levels. We have done a whole school, such as the high school. That was because of staffing, but we have done those things. Teachers are very used to that. They're in the know on that. And they're able to provide instruction through that. In 6th grade, if there is a positive case, this change does not affect how we quarantine 6th grade. 6th grade schedules are very unique. And I'm always appreciative with our guidance staff who really thinks about that transition from 5th to 6th grade. Not only are your children on a specific team, but for the most part, they travel with the same group of students every period. That's really good for the transition and not so good when we ask the questions for what happens if there's a positive case. So 6th grade automatically by the Saratoga Health Department is treated just like the elementary schools are treated. If there's a positive student in the class, the whole class gets quarantined. And it's because we do not know exactly the number of minutes that the students were near each other. This is done in the abundance of caution, and that's what Saratoga County Health has always practiced. I can tell you that we track this, and so far we have not had any student-to-student contact that's become positive because of in-school sessions. We still quarantine because we do that just in case, but we track this significantly, and we've not had any student-to-student spread of COVID. What will happen if parents are nervous about it? I know there's a lot out there. I had one question that said, why are we changing again? Our kids can't take all these changes. Sometimes it's us that can't take the changes. The kids first get nervous and then then they love it. And then sometimes they even say, can we always have it this way? And we have to like remind them that this is just the normal for right now. So if you're nervous about it, I encourage you to reach out to Mr. Hammond, Mr. Ruby, to continue to ask the questions. I encourage you that if your child wants to go back as a middle schooler full-time, that you give that option. The question was, why now? Why right before break? We intentionally did that so that way we have all of break with you as a family to kind of review what had been going on, and us as a school district to tweak those things. So that is why it's there. So again, I got questions like, I like it or why? We know that this decision is not meant by 100% of the people on this call or in the district being happy about this. I also know that keeping our students out as sixth graders from September to March has definitely not been something that everyone agrees to. People are definitely struggling with, even now, with how do their kids stay home by themselves and do the work? Or how do they juggle work-life balance when sixth graders are home for that? So those are a lot of the what if happens. Right now, we don't anticipate any change to bus schedules. That was another what happens if. And then, the other questions that came up about what happens if my child's schedule is changed. And as Mr. Ruby had said, at this point, we are working very hard to not have to do that because students are very comfortable with their groups that they're in, and so are the teachers. This way, we'll be able to continue math lab and all other activities that the students participate in. I can tell you that obviously music, orchestra, chorus, band, those numbers are going to increase, and we're going to have to change things just a little bit in those areas. But again, our kids are very used to that because they know they have to do things maybe by one instrument or by one group and things like that. With that said, I believe that covers a lot of the pre-questions that had come up. Mr. Ruby, if you want to stop. Oh, yes. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Didn't want to unmute. No, I was just going to show the last slide because we do thank everyone for their patience, their flexibility, and grace through all of this, and continuing on as things continue to change. So, Ms. Laura, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to know if you wanted to maybe stop sharing so that way we can see this. People can put questions in the comment section or the chat section, or there is a raise hand. If you want to raise your hand, we usually can see it on the screen and we're able to call you. So that way we can take your questions for that. And as I said, this is being recorded. So if people cannot stay on, they'll be able to hear the questions after that. It's nice out, Mr. Ruby. It's like we planned it on the nicest day, so people did not want to hang out with us all night, I think. One question was, does a quarantine count as an absence? Absolutely not. You're working with your teacher. Therefore, you are present in school. So absolutely that does not. Stephanie Lyons, you have your hand raised?
Are you sure that doesn't count as an absence? Because my daughter had to quarantine last week, and when the nurse called just recently, she said that it would show up as an absence on the report.
So it may show up on your end, but on our end, depending on which way we put the absence in, there's 2 levels of absence. You're not present in the building, but depending on how they put the absence in on the back end, it would still be considered a presence. But with Mr. Hammond, Mr. Ruby on the line, we'll definitely check that for you because, like I say, you're engaged in learning through this, so therefore you're present.
Right. She did virtual all week,
Yeah,
for the whole
exactly.
week, so,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll definitely check that for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, we'll check it. For safety reasons, we have to know if students are in the building or not, and that's why it could look as though she was absent.
There's a question in the chat about the 3-foot distance and does it apply during lunchtime? The answer would be no. 6 foot for eating. That remains in effect.
Yes, and that's why we have the kids spread out throughout the cafeteria, LGI, and now adding some teacher classrooms as well.
So there's another question about tomorrow is Wednesday. And I can tell you that, we are trying and thinking of any way we possibly can to help all of our students. And I know that the Wednesdays came with mixed emotions. I heard from as many people thanking us for trying to get our kids in. And I also heard from the families for sure that said, why are you doing these? My kid is now have less time on Wednesdays than ever before. We took both of those to heart. And we really looked into that. And so the Wednesdays are going to change. Tomorrow is still the same, okay, because it's tomorrow. And so we can't change with families like that. Next week is the 4-day week before the break. And then the April schedule will come out. Usually by now, somebody on the chat said, when are we going to get the April schedule? We're still working out the details about kind of the shift and what we're going to do to try to get all the students back to 100%. So we're going cautiously for the next couple days on that. But before vacation, we definitely will have that schedule out. So that way everyone is in the know on this, for that component. So that piece will be there. At some point before the year is over, the virtual Wednesdays will go away for everyone because we want the students in the school, full-time at 100% as much as possible. So that piece will be there, but we're trying to take one step at a time, and we know that there will be a little nervous of getting the students back, and we're okay with that before we do another thing that's different. I don't know, Mr. Ruby, if you have anything else on that.
No, but I do see there's a question about, is there talk about picnic tables outside for lunches done in the high school? Yeah, we're talking about it. We just have to convince Mr. Modi to share some of those tables, I think. I don't know if he's willing to give some of those up.
Well, I think also the issue with the picnic tables at the middle school is the location. At the high school, they have a very nice location right outside the cafeteria to put the picnic tables. Unfortunately, when you take a look at the middle school, the only place that we have that could fit them are the athletic fields. So the kids would have to go out and across the road and down the hill to go to the picnic tables, which isn't necessarily optimal when they're carrying their lunches and things like that. So like Mr. Ruby had alluded to, students having lunch in the classroom, there is already some talk with some teachers bringing students out for lunch as well. Because we're going to have approximately 55 to 60 kids with teachers during those lunch periods. So we're definitely looking at the outside as well. I hope you don't mind jumping in, Mr. Ruby.
No, not at all.
Somebody offered picnic tables today, and so it was already on my head.
So I love that somebody offered picnic tables because now that everything is open, getting picnic tables donated to the school is getting a little harder. So Mr. Modi is hitting me up to try to have our students make picnic tables for the high school. We're trying to count it as part of a project, end of the year project for one of our classes is to make picnic tables for that. So actually, let's see, one other question came up. Aaron, thank you so much because we probably should have put a different slide in, so I appreciate that. When we come back, for sure, the first couple weeks will be in school 4 days and Wednesday will still be completely virtual. That will change over time, but at least for the first couple weeks, it will be 4 days in person and 1 day virtual. And it's for all the reasons that you're thinking, right? Now that we have all the kids back for 2 days, do we need to change any of our cleaning patterns? Do we need to update any of our decisions on the hallways? Every single time we try to bring somebody back. And again, this is sixth grade, our first grade, because you're elementary. We wanted our elementary students back first. And then you will be hearing as a district how we can get people back 7th through 12th grade. Because if there's anything I want in 2021 is September to start at 100% and us to feel good and comfortable about it because all the things been in place.
It looks like there are a couple other bus schedule questions.
Yeah, so again, you'll get notified soon if that is. Usually they're gonna ride the same bus. If anything, we're trying to look at just the middle school to high school runs and how we can do that a little differently, or like the transfer things. But, you know, they feel very confident that, you know, with that component, we'll be able to ride the same bus. And again, if you're nervous about that, 2 masks, they don't have to wear 2 masks all day, but I recommend 2 masks on the bus. If you're nervous about it, you can put the shield on. If you don't have a shield and you want the school to provide one, we're happy to look into that and provide it for you. Whatever we can do to make you more comfortable with transportation in that area for that. So, you know, those are all things that we're trying to look into for that, but we're trying to keep as much normalcy to this as possible. And that's why we're only bringing 6th grade back. We're only looking at the buses for 6th grade, and then we will work from there on that.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions.
So I appreciate everyone taking the time to come tonight. Mr. Ruby, thank you so much for taking the time to create the presentation and to answer any questions. And, you know, one thing I know that the 4 of us on this call believe in is that don't be afraid when you get off the call and you talk with your child, if other questions come up, to write to us. Everything is nerve-wracking for everyone. Every change is new. We know that. And this is what we do all day long, is answer questions about anything that's coming up, and we're fine with that. This is our normal right now. So that is all that really matters for us. And we want to make sure you're comfortable with that. So with that said, I have nothing else, Mr. Ruby. Thank you again for this night, and be on the lookout because we're going to have town halls for reopening. We're going to have town halls for starting the school year. We will have town halls on the budget and what that looks like for next year. So there's lots of opportunities virtually to be able to connect with us before the end of the year.
So thank you, and also thank you for the kind words and the encouraging words, and we'll continue to work together as we move forward. Thanks again, and try to catch a little bit of what's left of this beautiful day. Thank you.